Alright, guys. This is gonna be fucking hard. This is gonna be by far the hardest video I've ever done on here. And probably one of the hardest ones even into the future. Excluding like every other film by David Lynch. And you can see the light in here, but before you die, you see the ring. That's not going to be the only joke here, because we don't have time for jokes. It's 3:30 in the morning, which is a great time to watch Eraserhead or a Lynch film, but it's not the best time to be doing a video discussion on it. I got the strongest coffee I have. This is going to be fucking long, so strap the fuck in like you're about to jump out of a plane and go skydiving, because yeah, this is going to go long. I'm going to try to do everything I can to keep this like sub an hour, but who knows. 1977's Eraserhead by David Lynch, starring Jack Nance, who's collaborated with Lynch on so many things after this, and played Pete Martell in Twin Peaks, and all of that great stuff. I'm just going to talk about Lynch for a little bit here. He's one of my favorite directors of all time. And I've been saying since I first started this channel, like in the first week or so, one of those videos has me mentioning Lynch and saying down the road I will definitely be covering all of his work. And I've been fucking nervous, man, to fucking do it. Because how do you talk about Lynch's work? Like, it's going to be a very different video than everything else on my channel. Like 100%. Like, this is a movie and all of his work, like, that you can't really talk about plot or lines in the movie or anything like that. It's just all the symbolism and interpretations and just everything about him. He's not only one of my favorite directors of all time, David Lynch, he's one of my favorite people to exist, like ever. Just his personality. He is such a humble man. He's such a peaceful person. I love not only his movies, I love his artwork, his paintings. I love his music that he's done. I love his acting in anything he's acted in, especially in Twin Peaks as Gordon Cole. Like, everything that this man does is a work of art. Like, everything. There's not a single work by him in any of those aforementioned genres of entertainment or art that I don't think is an absolute masterpiece. Everything by this man that he's done in his career is just unbelievable. And I think he is one of, if not the most influential and important directors, like, of the fucking century. Like, really. Like, even Stanley Kubrick made the whole cast and crew of The Shining, when he was making that movie, sit down and watch Eraserhead to show them, like, this is the type of feel I want The Shining to have. That's how fucking influential this movie and Lynch in general has been on almost any director that you can think of that's come after him and after this movie. Like, I don't know, man. Like I said, this is going to be so fucking hard. Just watching this movie, like any of his, is like just watching a dream. Just like stream of consciousness filmmaking that I can absolutely see the criticisms that he's gotten throughout his whole career. And the people that don't care for Lynch at all and just think it's just all his work is a bunch of pretentious bullshit and that there's no meaning and that it's just all just surreal and dreamlike just for the sake of being weird. And I could not disagree more. Like, every single, and I'm going to blanket this statement so we can move the fuck on. Every fucking shot in this movie, every frame, everything is masterful. Everything. And the fact that he wrote, produced, directed, edited, and did all the sound design for this movie might be the greatest directorial debut of all time. Like, honestly. Like, and it's hard. Like, it's hard to say something like that, especially after you just watched a movie that you consider to be one of the best in something, and then talking about it right afterwards, so because it's so fresh in your head. To be able to actually sit down and really go through all the film in my head, I'd have to like take a break from movies, like totally, for like 6 months, not watch a single film, and then sit down and just think, like really think, man, like hard, to be able to say like what I think the greatest directorial debut is, what I think is the greatest film of all time. That I don't think is the thing, and it always will be for me. But all those favorites and best ofs and stuff like that, that's why if anyone asks me what's your favorite song of all time, there's no way to answer that. Are you kidding? Like, as the musician that I am, and all the music that I've listened to and collected over the years, I got like terabytes of music in my music collection. There is no fucking way I can pick out a favorite song, or like even a top 20 or 50 or 100. Like, there's no way. But moving on, this is going to be long enough as it is. Just all the themes in this movie, and these are themes throughout all of Lynch's career, of machinery and industrialism and pollution, of not just like pollution of, you know, the planet and stuff, but of the mind and the soul and the body, and just sex, especially in this film, and fatherhood for this film especially, and just electricity, which we see in so many of his works, especially in Twin Peaks, duality and doppelgangers and the duplicity. Like, all of these themes are through all of Lynch's work, and I don't think there's a better director at doing that, at symbolism and having these themes play out through it and explored through all of his movies, and just this use of metaphor and just all of that. I don't think there's a better director. I really don't. Like, I can't think of any. It's Lynch. Like, I don't know. Like I said, I have to exclude myself from the world of film for like half a year to be able to go through my brain and really come to a conclusion. But most of the time, whenever I think of that topic, it's always Lynch. Like, for the most part, always, like pretty much always. Next thing I gotta mention is the sound design in this movie. There is no other director that I watch all of his films on every rewatch with headphones. None. There's no other director that I watch all of his films with headphones on. Only one. The only one. Like, I rarely use headphones to watch movies. But when it comes to Lynch, with his sound design, he is an absolute fucking master with that. And there is sound, like the sound in this movie, and in all of it, and I don't want to keep saying in all of his work, because I mean, all of this is in all of his work from here on forward, pretty much. But sticking with this movie, there is not a single second, really, of silence. There is sound throughout the entire movie of just machinery and white noise and rain and thunder and steam from the radiator, and just all throughout the movie the sound is like its own, like, omnipotent character. It's everywhere, and that's why I watch all his movies with headphones on, just to get even more submersed into the experience of watching a film by him, because that's what it is. Like, watching a David Lynch film is like, it's the fucking experience. Like, this is why it's going to be so hard to talk about this movie, man. Like, absolutely. So we have the opening shot with Henry's head in space, floating in space, which we get a great little nod to in Twin Peaks: The Return, with Major Briggs' head floating in space, or whatever you want to call it. Like, like this is what I'm saying. Man. Like, it's gonna be. This is, oh god. And we have the planet behind him, which I always look. Now, these are all. This whole video is going to be just my interpretations of this film and the way I've always viewed it. And that's even hard to do because on every single rewatch of this movie or any of his movies, it changes. Like, interpretations change, theories change on what this means or what that shot means, what this symbolizes. Like, all of that changes every single rewatch for me. But the planet we see behind Henry's head when it's floating in space, I always saw that as Henry's brain. And then we have the man in the planet who's moving the levers. That's him controlling Henry's brain. Like, he's the engineer, which again plays into the whole, in industry themes and mechanics and all of that, and technology, like, plays into all of that. So he, to me, has always been like the controller, the engineer of Henry's brain, of his mind, and controls what he does and how he thinks. And the sperm that comes out of Henry's mouth and into the puddle, like that, I don't think anyone really has to stretch their brain to know what that symbolizes. It's conception, basically. It's the sperm coming out of his mouth, going into the puddle, which represents the egg or the womb or whatever you want to say, call it, and signifying conception or birth. Because right after that, we have the shot coming out of the darkness that goes forward into the bright light, like a baby coming out of the womb, like giving birth. So that is pretty much, you can't really look at that any other way. But as this movie keeps going, like, yeah, there's a million interpretations that you can take from this. Then Henry, when he the shot of him stepping in the puddle, I always took that as kind of, if the puddle is representing Mary's womb, that she's going to give birth to this deformed premature baby, then him stepping in the puddle is him contaminating that. It's him polluting her womb. And kind of maybe gives reason to why this baby is deformed, like severely deformed, because it was contaminated by Henry, which I'll get into more of that later. And the mailbox, always looked at the mailbox as Henry's sexual desire. That when we first see him go to the mailbox, there's nothing in there, like showing that he has no sexual desire at that point. And later on, when he goes into the mailbox again and reaches it, and we see the fucking worm thing. I don't know what the fuck it is. It's something. The worm that he takes out and he puts in his pocket, which I always thought was kind of foreshadowing his affair with the beautiful girl across the hall. Kind of makes sense for me. That he goes in at the beginning, there's nothing in the mailbox, he has no sexual desire. And then as he's in this predicament and basically forced into marriage with Mary that he really doesn't love or care about really that much, that he's trapped. And he tries finding happiness in an affair. And that's why when he goes to the mailbox the second time, later in the movie, he pulls out the worm creature thing. And he puts it in his pocket, like he's saving that thought for later. Like he's saving the idea of an affair with the beautiful girl across the hall. That's the way I've always taken it. And obviously, I would love to hear anyone who sees this, their interpretations and theories and stuff on everything in this movie. Like, this is a video that I even contemplated live streaming this. Like, not at fucking 4 a.m, like, but like sometime tomorrow or something. But like, would have done it like if I was confident that like more than maybe 5 people would tune in. Like, like I know I have some David Lynch followers on here. Like, I know I have some followers who are Lynch fans. So I know right off the bat that from the length of this video and just this being David Lynch and not being a straight horror director, that this video is not going to get a lot of views or anything, like, off the bat. Like, the more, if it gets stumbled upon by Lynch fans and stuff, then maybe and stuff. But like I don't give a fuck about any of that views and shit. And the elevator, where we get that long shot of Henry waiting in the elevator for the doors to close, and it's almost uncomfortably long. Like, he's just waiting in the elevator for way too long for those doors to close. And just all the themes of technology and sex in this movie, I've always looked at as that those are the two things that disrupt his happiness. And maybe that Lynch was making a, subtle comment that it disrupts everybody's happiness, all of us. And that rings so true for today. Like, just look at technology today. People can't fucking put their phones away. They can't pull themselves away from social media, like all of that. And that shit does affect your happiness and your joy of life. And that's what I think he's meaning by all the use of the themes of sex and technology and industrialism and machinery, and all of those themes throughout this movie are disrupting Henry's life and are preventing him from being happy in any way. And then obviously as the movie progresses and the kid is brought home, the baby, then it just gets worse from there. But the elevator is, I think that shot is symbolizing the fact of technology getting in the way of his happiness, that he's getting antsy, just waiting for the doors to close. Like, you can tell he's anxious. And Jack Nance's performance in this movie, man, is so fucking good. Like, it really is. Like, I can't think of anyone else on the planet who could have portrayed Henry Spencer in this movie. No one. Like, Jack Nance. That's it. There's nobody else. But the whole thing with the elevator taking so uncomfortably long to close and take him up is just technology, again, fucking with him. Just showing that he can't find happiness in anything, basically. And there's so much of that to go through. Like I said, we're at 20 minutes already almost, and I'm not even close to fucking anywhere near done. So, like I said, strap in if you're even still here. The beautiful girl across the hall. Her whole meaning in this, like I said, he has the affair with her later. I'll save this for later because it's more important a little later on. And again, like with the record player skipping when he gets into his apartment. And even then, like trying to play music to make him happy or to calm him down or find any sort of joy. Even that technology won't cooperate. Like, won't bring him the happiness that he's trying so desperately to get in his life. He puts the record on and it immediately starts skipping. And he has to fix it. Like, dude, he's a fucking master, man. Like, no one like David Lynch, like, at all. That's why I said this video is going to be completely different than any video that I've done on this channel. And anything I will do in the future. Excluding other movies by Lynch, because he's just in a fucking category all of his own. Like, there is no one that comes close to Lynch. If I saw a movie that was like a David Lynch movie that I never heard of or saw, like just like some brand new movie, and no one told me it was by David Lynch, it was just a complete blind walk-in, immediately I would know it's David Lynch. Or it's somebody trying to heavily emulate David Lynch. That's how just distinct his whole style is for everything that he does in his works. The atomic bomb picture and the dying plants in his apartment, like with the plants that aren't even in like a vase or anything like that. They're just mountain. It's just the plants and the fucking dirt and just sitting on a table. I always looked at that as like his life and his mind state decaying. That he's slowly dying inside. And even more so after the pregnancy is brought up and the baby's brought home. And the picture of the atomic bomb blast going off, you can look at that, and I guess in the sexual way, that it signifies, like an ejaculation, like somebody coming, and like explosion. Like, you can look at it that way. You can look at it as the foreshadowing of his brain, his losing his mind, and just not being able to deal with having a deformed child and being married to Mary that he does not, like I said, doesn't love, was forced into this marriage pretty much. And like I said, there's a million fucking theories that you can go into. This is a movie, and all of his movies, that I can talk about for fucking hours and hours and hours. And just, that's the one reason, like I said, that I would have, like, if this was like not in the first few months in like the small infancy of the channel, I would have done a live stream on this just to have other people to bounce ideas off of. But that's why, leave anything in the comments at all, anything at all that you want to say about this movie or Lynch in any way, because I am always down to talk about David Lynch, like anytime, ever. And then the steam blowing inside outside of Mary's place when he goes over for dinner. I look at it as another symbolism of pollution. That this is pollution coming into, this is when he's about to find out that Mary's pregnant and that he's going to have to marry her. And that this is pollution coming into his life. Like the biggest pollution that there is to come into his life. And that's why there's this big gusts of steam coming through the window, like right outside Mary's apartment. Always looked at it that way. And then we have the dogs feeding, the dog feeding its puppies, and they're all sucking on its teats. And you hear it through that whole scene. Like, the sound design is unreal in this whole movie. Like I said, like, I don't even have to repeat that. But this scene in particular, like with the dogs, with the puppies sucking on the mother's breasts, you hear that throughout the entire scene of just them sucking away. And it's just more foreshadowing at what's about to come Henry's way. That he's going to be a father. That he's going to have to take care of this deformed child. And then a little later on, we hear when the mother takes Henry outside and asks if him and Mary have had sexual intercourse, and then mentions that there's a baby and that you're going to have to marry Mary and stuff. We hear the dog whimper. Like a little whimper. Like the dog's upset. Like, I don't know, man. Like, there's so much stuff that I'm just glossing over all stuff. Because if I included everything in this movie, this would be a fucking 3-hour video. Like, 100%. But, like, just the sound of the dog whimpering when he gets the news that he's gonna have a baby, that there's a baby, and that he has to marry Mary. The dog that's been feeding its puppies makes that whimper. Like signifying that there's distress, that something's wrong. And that plays perfectly into his whole feelings about being a father. And David Lynch wrote this movie about his fear of becoming a father, his fear of fatherhood before his first child was born. And so you can basically take that as a template for this whole movie and what it's supposed to mean and the metaphors throughout it and the symbolism and everything. But there's so much more than that in here. And Lynch has said, like on numerous occasions, that no one has ever come up to him with an accurate interpretation of this movie. No one. So the fact that nobody of all the David Lynch fans in the world and fans of this movie have never come up with the exact meaning to this movie that David Lynch had in mind when he made it and wrote it and directed it. Just says it all right there. Like really. Like there's no way of cracking this man's mind. There's no way for anybody to see inside this man's mind and what he's thinking and why he's putting everything he puts on screen. There is not a shot in this movie or any of his work that doesn't mean something. Every shot is intentional. Every scene is intentional. Every line of dialogue is intentional. Everything is there for a reason. That's why I said when people criticize Lynch, and it's just weirdness for the sake of weirdness, and just dreamlike, surreal pretentiousness, and all of that. No, that would imply that there's no meaning behind any of this. Everything in Lynch's films has a meaning to it. Like everything. Every shot, every frame, every line out of a character's mouth, every sound that you hear, everything. There's a meaning behind all of it. There is no unnecessary shots or anything in any of Lynch's work. Like at all. Like, then it's unreal. Let's see here. I don't even know where the fuck I am. This video is going to be all over the place. Let me just... I should have said that at the beginning. If I didn't, I don't even remember. In fact, I need some coffee. 1 second. Ah, delicious. Bill's line about building every pipe in town and seeing that saying that he was a plumber and that he saw this town go from beautiful pastures to the shithole that it is now. Again, just pollution and industry and how it all took over, and that this used to be a beautiful town with pastures and views, beautiful views, which I'll get into something relating to that. But I don't get the pipe in that scene. Like when they're in Mary's apartment and Bill's talking about all that, about being a plumber, and makes those lines. There's a prominent pipe, like a big black pipe in the top left of the frame. And we see later that the pipe is leading into the puddle that is supposed to represent Mary's womb or egg, or, again, what have you. I've never came to a conclusion on that, like what the pipe represents. So if anyone has any interpretations on that, leave it in the comments. Let me know. I would love to discuss that. And then the chicken scene, the dinner scene. This is another one that I think is a little obvious watching here. Like, I mean, what a fucking weird scene, man. But that's with everything with him. But when he goes to carve the chicken, and he puts the two-pronged carving fork into the chicken to carve it, that's foreshadowing of the scissor that he uses to kill the baby at the end of the movie, right? That's the way I've always taken it. And obviously with the chicken, with the legs moving and stuff like that, is signifying birth, that it's giving birth. Just like how he's about to find out that he has a baby. And the blood coming out of it, or whatever the fuck that is. And just the whole decision to shoot this in black and white. What a great decision. Like, I can't picture this movie in color. Like, I really can't. Like, absolutely, like, the film that, if anything, deserves to be in black and white. Like, I can't picture it any other way. Like, I've always wondered if there's a colored version somewhere. I doubt there is. But if there is, I wouldn't want to see it. Like, the black and white works so well for this film. And The Elephant Man, too, after this. But for this film, especially. But the blood or whatever that fucking liquid is, substance coming out of the chicken, you can look at as not like a miscarriage, but I guess like the death of the baby. Like foreshadowing the death of the baby at the end. And that's the way I've always looked at it. Like, I can't think of really another explanation, which, like I said several times already, there are so many fucking explanations and theories out there. But that's the one I've always went with, that it's just foreshadowing the death of the baby at the end and Henry killing the baby. And then we have the repeated shots that we see a few times in this of lights flickering, then growing very, very, very bright and then burning out. Which, like I said, electricity is a huge theme in all of his work, especially in Twin Peaks, and especially in Twin Peaks: The Return. But I always looked at that as like parts of Henry's brain flickering out. like him slowly losing his mind, kind of like synapses bursting or like his brain cells deteriorating. That's the way I've always viewed that, and I think it makes sense, especially with the end of this movie, how it ends, and of course I'll get to that. Then we find out about the premature baby and her Mary's line that I'm not even sure that it is a baby, and the whole thing with the mom like trying to come on to Henry. I have no idea what that means, like at all. I don't understand that scene one bit. When she's like kissing his neck and everything, and he's getting very uncomfortable. Maybe it's just to show his uncomfortability with sex and all that. Probably, maybe. Who knows? I don't know, man. But then he gets the nosebleed, which I think symbolizes his fear, basically, of just hearing that he's gonna have to marry Mary that he doesn't love and has a fucking baby that he was not prepared for, didn't ask for, didn't want. And that's just, he's so fearful that this is just him reacting to all that news. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of theories, like I said, and I don't knows and all of that, because, like I said, no one has ever went to Lynch with an accurate description and explanation for this movie. So how the fuck am I going to have one? This is just all my thoughts on it. And then with the bricks outside Henry's window, we see numerous shots of this throughout the film. That right outside his window is just another building, a brick building, and all he can see is brick. And I think that's a great way of showing that he's trapped, that he feels like he's in jail, that he's in a situation he can't get out of. That, again, like, he doesn't want to be married to Mary, doesn't want this kid, even though he does try his best, like at first, to try to care for this thing. Like, you can't even really call it a baby. But just the use of the bricks outside, that there's nothing out there. Like, there's nothing that he can distract himself with from his reality of what's happening to him. Like, there's no view outside, there's nothing to take his mind off anything, it's just bricks. Like, he's sealed in. And even his bed, like the bedposts, look like jail cell bars. And again, plays into that whole theme. And when Mary's staying the night over and the baby keeps crying and she leaves to go to her parents and says she just wants a good night's sleep. And then we get that weird scene, like right before she leaves, when she's bending down in front of the bed. And it looks like she's in a prison cell. Like, she can't take it anymore. Like, she's trapped too. But she's able to get out. Henry can't. Like, he's fucked. Like, he's trapped in this situation. He's trapped in his reality. And the radiator, something we gotta talk about. Always looked at that as his fantasy world. Like, his escape from reality. Like, that's where he goes to get out of his head. That's where he goes to his happy place, to escape the horror of his life, the horror of his reality that he's in. That he has this deformed fucking child that won't stop crying. And he has Mary, they have no relationship. Like, when they show them sleeping in bed and stuff, he goes to put his arm around her and she just immediately shrugs it off. Like, there is no love there. There is no attachment there. There is no relationship there. There is no emotion there. There is nothing. And that's his escape, is the radiator. That takes him to his happy place. That takes him to his fantasies and where he would rather be than in his actual reality. And then the lady in the radiator, I always looked at her as kind of like, again, if we're going through that theory of that it's his fantasies and that it's his escape from reality, I think that she represents his idea of a perfect girl, of the perfect woman. And her appearance has nothing to do with it, with the growths and stuff and the way she looks. Doesn't mean anything. Just the fact that she's happy, that she's cheerful when she has the "In Heaven Everything's Fine" song later on, that she's singing and dancing, and especially that when the sperms start falling from the onto the stage from the sky, and she starts stepping on and squishing the sperm, symbolizing that she can't get pregnant, which is exactly what he wishes would be his reality. That Mary wouldn't have gotten pregnant, that he wouldn't be in this situation. So to me, the Lady in the Radiator has always been his fantasy of the perfect woman for him. Just happiness, cheerfulness, joy, and not being able to get pregnant, and all of that. Like, that's my theory on the Lady in the Radiator. And then it lends even more credibility to that when the first time we see him staring into the radiator, when he's drifting off into his little reality that he loves to be in instead of actual reality, the baby crying snaps him out of it. Like, he's submersed in staring at the radiator and in his little fantasy world, and then the baby crying snaps him back to reality, is the way I've always taken that. And the baby crying when Henry tries leaving is just another way of showing he can't escape this. Like, he can't leave. Like, he's stuck in this predicament. And that he has to care for this kid. Like, there's no escaping it. Like, Mary can just up and leave. Like I said, go to her parents' house, which he does numerous times. He's stuck there. He's stuck with this deformed mutant child. And every time he tries to open that door and walk out of the apartment, the baby starts crying more and draws him back in. Which, oh man, this whole fucking movie. And then let's talk about the worm thing in the cupboard. We get that shot with the light right on the cupboard that he puts the worm creature thing in when he takes it out of the mailbox earlier. And then we see it crawling through the dirt, and we see it getting bigger and growing, and then like its fucking like head or mouth fucking opens wide, and we go into it. I don't know, man. Like if, like I said earlier, if I'm thinking that whole worm thing in the mailbox represents him getting his sexual desire back, like specifically for the affair with the beautiful girl across the hall, then I would have to guess that the worm growing and stuff would represent that desire for the affair growing more and more. Because like I said, there's no love in their marriage. Like, he's not happy at all with Mary, and she's completely emotionally unavailable, and Henry has all his own issues with sex and sexuality and all that. So just the worm growing representing his growing desire for the affair? Right? Wrong? Who knows, man? Who knows? Then when he finally has the affair with the girl across the hall, with the scene with them making out in the bed, and it turns into the white puddle, and they just sink into it. I don't know. That I have no fucking idea, man. I mean, yeah, the on the nose thing that you can take from it is that it's semen, the white liquid that they're in, but like, then they sink into it. So I don't know what the fuck that means. Like, I've never come to a conclusion with that. Like, ever. So if anyone has an idea of the white puddle in the bed and why they get sucked down into it and all of that, let me know. Because that's one thing in this movie that I've never come to a conclusion on. Like, at all. And then we get the "In Heaven Everything Is Fine" song from the Lady in the Radiator, which always thought it was interesting. And like I said, there's never anything that Lynch does that's not intentional or important. That the word, and he wrote the lyrics for this song too. So she sings "In heaven everything is fine," and then she says, "You've got yours and I've got mine." But then the second time around, she says, "You got yours and you've got mine." So again, I don't know what that means. Like, kind of, because after that, we get the white light, like the real bright white light that flashes, and then the lady in the radiator disappears, which I always looked at like she gave him something. What? I have no fucking idea. Like, hope, maybe? Or that there's a way out, like kill the baby and you'll set yourself free? Or I have no clue. But like, that's probably what those lines being different in the song means. That like her saying that you've got mine, and she gives him something in that scene right before she disappears. That's the way I've always looked at it. But again, this is all taken with a grain of salt because I have no fucking idea concretely of any of this being right in any way. And then we have the baby's head knocking Henry's head off his shoulders, and the baby's head comes up through his neck, which is a phallic symbol. Like, the whole thing with the baby is absolutely a phallic symbol. Just the head of it, and the way that its head looks, and just the way that it comes out of his body after his head gets knocked off. Like, it looks like a dick. So, like, absolutely a phallic symbol. Then later on, when I'll get to that, but his head falling off and then falling into the puddle of blood, and then just falling from the sky into the street. I don't know what that means. Like, it's great fucking shots and everything, and it looks great. No idea what that means. But then the kid finds his head and brings it to the pencil factory, and this I think is the most important scene in the movie. Like, this gives, and he actually came up with the name Eraserhead before he wrote this movie and wrote the script. So, I mean, that makes me think on exactly what he had in mind before he wrote the script when he came up with the name. Because, I mean, I've heard people in the past just say that, Eraserhead, well, Jack Nance, Henry's head looks like a fucking end of a pencil. His hair is crazy. It looks like an Eraserhead. Yeah, but no. Like, I mean, it does, but that's not what we fucking mean here. And when his fucking head falls from the sky outside before the boy picks his head up, his scalp and his hair peel off, and we see his brain exposed. So, I don't know. I don't have a theory for that. I don't. Then when he gets to the pencil factory, the kid with his head, I think that, like I said, that this is the most important scene in the movie. That they're making erasers from his brain and his head for the pencils. And I've always looked at that as symbolizing the fact that Henry basically takes the happiness out of everything. Like, erases the happiness out of Mary, takes away her happiness and joy in life. He takes his own happiness and joy out of his own life. The baby's happiness and joy out of its life, if it even had any, like, when he kills the baby at the end. So, Eraserhead, meaning that he's able to, that's just how he is, that he's able to suck the life out of all these characters around him, that he's able to erase any meaning in life for Mary and for himself, and any existence or future for the child. And then we have the whole thing of the father and son of being the same, like we hear this in Twin Peaks, one and the same, like we hear that a few times in Twin Peaks. And it's implied a few times in here. Even with the scene when his head falls off and the baby's head replaces it. Like, it's replacing Henry. That the son's replacing the father. That they're one and the same. Like, that's the way I've always looked at it. Especially with Twin Peaks. With Lynch utilizing that same theme and that same type of line of, one and the same and stuff. Like, that's the way I've always looked at it. And, like, all the shots of Henry lying on his back, lends more to that. It's him laying on his back the same way the baby's always laying on his back, facing up at the ceiling. Same way that Henry lies on his bed, on his back, looking at the ceiling. So one and the same. That the father and the son, they're the same. That's how I've always looked at it. If anyone has another interesting idea for what that means, let me know. Then when Henry knocks on the girl across the hall's door and she's not home, and then he comes in back into the apartment and the baby's cackling like it's laughing at him. Like it knows that that's like one of the last places that he can try to find any happiness in his life. And that he's denied that by the woman not being home, the baby starts laughing at him. That's how I've always looked at that. Like, I know a lot of this is just saying like how I've always viewed this and this and this, but it's really the only way you can talk about this movie or a David Lynch film in general. Like I said, because I mean, you can't like talk about the plot. Like if I was to just like sit here and say like, oh, this scene happens and this, we'd be like, what the fuck is going on? Like we like no clue what any of this means. So you really have to like just talk about just the symbolism and the themes and the metaphor and just what everything is supposed to represent, and all of that is just what makes Lynch's films so fucking interesting and engrossing, and just the type of movies that when it ends, after no matter how many rewatches, it sticks with you like for a while. Like I'm talking about it now and stuff, but as soon as the movie ended, I was still thinking like crazy. And I was thinking, how the fuck am I going to talk about this? And then I'm talking about it. When I end this video, guaranteed, until I fall asleep, I'm going to be thinking about this movie. And those are the movies that I hold dearest to my heart. Like, any movie like that, that's a good movie, that I love, that has those type of themes in it, and just is open to interpretation, and that there's just a million ideas and theories, and just you can explore it in your head like for fucking ever and still not come to like a satisfying conclusion, is my favorite type of films. Like anything that makes you think, and makes you think for a long time, and just sticks with you. And like I said earlier in the beginning, that like every time rewatching this movie or any of his others, I always come to different conclusions and always shift my interpretations and what I feel this means, or this shot means, or what this is supposed to symbolize, and all of that. Those are my favorite type of movies. Like anything that can get my brain kick-started into high gear and start dissecting everything about it is just sublime for me. Like, absolutely. And that's why Lynch is one of my favorite directors of all time. Because he's one of the few who can do that in everything he's ever done. And it's just fucking masterful. Like, it's unbelievable. He is an absolute genius. Like, it's the only words I can use to describe Lynch. Is he's a fucking genius. Like, he's like the Albert Einstein of film. Like, that's the best like metaphor I can use for him. He is the Albert Einstein of filmmaking. He's just an absolute genius. And then Henry with the baby's head, when he opens the door and he sees the weird fucking guy that's with the beautiful girl across the hall, and she looks at him and she sees him with the baby's head. I'm pretty sure it's kind of obvious that she can't look at him without thinking of his deformed child, because she sees it in the room when they're having the affair. So I think that's kind of obvious that that's what that's supposed to mean. That she's seeing him with the baby's head because she can't look at him anymore without seeing the deformed child. So I'm 100% almost on that's what that's supposed to mean. And then the baby's organs, when he cuts open the bandages on the baby, and we see that he has no body. That is just the bandages were holding the organs together. And he only has like 2 organs, which I've always taken it, and like I said earlier, with the head of the baby being a phallic symbol and everything, that the organs are the testicles. And the fact that they're wrapped in bandages is like the scrotum, that they're inside a sack. And then he stabs the baby in the testicle, if you want to call it, or its organ, whatever you want to fucking call it. And we have the white liquid coming out, which could mean semen, could mean... then we get the fucking white pus that just, like, keeps on growing and growing. I don't know what the fuck that is. Like, I mean, it's something. I'm sure it is. I don't know. It plays into all of that, though. But that's the only way that I've always saw that. As when he cuts the baby open and kills the baby. Is that the baby is just a phallic symbol, the head, and its organs are like the testicles. And I think that makes sense. Like, I've had discussions on this movie and all of Lynch's work with so many other Lynch fans, and kind of similar conclusions a lot of us come to. So pretty sure on a lot of this and the interpretations I have here. But who the fuck knows when it comes to Lynch, man? Like, who knows? Like I said, nobody has ever figured this movie out, and probably never will. Like, nobody's ever going to figure out exactly what Lynch meant with this movie, or any of his stuff, like, ever. And then we have the baby's neck elongating and everything, and then he starts seeing the baby's giant head and stuff, like, appearing, like, in the darkness and stuff. Got me again. Like, I don't know. I really don't have a theory for that. Like, if I'm trying to think of it, like, right on the spot, there's going to be a lot of silence, but let's see, like, what can it mean by that? The neck elongating. Could kind of be like, no, that doesn't really make sense. Who fucking knows? We're at 52 minutes, so I'm keeping it under an hour. But awesome shots. And the way that that's all filmed and everything, just like this whole movie. Awesome stuff. Then we see the planet again, and it explodes. And there's a big hole in it, like it fractures, which I think is pretty much just Henry's brain exploding. Like, his brain just, his mind just, he loses his mind. And that there's nothing really left. Because then we see the man in the planet struggling with the levers that he was controlling earlier. And I said it's like he's controlling his mind and his body. So, like, the spark shooting out of the lever and him trying to control the lever, but he can't anymore, is the fact that his mind is gone. For the most part, like, he's lost his mind. Maybe even that he dies. Like, I've heard that theory, and I can completely see where they're going with that. Especially when you read back into the whole one and the same, with the father is the son, and the son is the father, and stuff. That he kills the son, the baby, and in that moment, and since they're the same, he's killing himself also. Which makes sense for the ending of the movie here. And after the planet explodes, which again is like his mind just disintegrating, his mind just being gone, just exploding. And then we see the eraser shavings flying past him, as that's just what's left, I guess, of his mind. Like, barely nothing. Like dust, almost. Like the small shavings of what remains of his mind state and his life, if we go down the he dies route. That's the way I've always looked at that. And especially in the scene in the pencil factory, when the guy who's making the erasers, when he tests the eraser and then he says, yeah, it's good. And then he brushes the shavings off, and it's just a pile of shavings on the side of the table. And then he just brushes them away. like they don't mean anything. Like they're just remains. Like they have no importance anymore. That's the way I've always seen that, and it makes sense for me. Then we have the ending with the bright white light, which again, like as we've seen a few times, with the lights flickering and then growing very, very bright and then shutting off, which I said kind of represents his brain cells deteriorating, his mind deteriorating, his synapses exploding, or whatever you want to fucking call it, or refer to it as, any of that. One second. Yeah, I needed more of that for this fucking thing. But we have the bright white light, and then we have the lady in the radiator who shows up and embraces Henry and hugs him, and then that's the end of the movie. So it makes sense both ways that he lost his mind and lost all touch with reality after killing his baby. And all that's left is his fantasies, which I said is what I think the lady in the radiator represents. This is his fantasy, his perfect girl. And that he can finally live just in his fantasy and live with that perfect girl. And finally have some type of happiness, enjoying his life. Or if we go down the other route, that he dies, just like by him killing the child, his son, he's killing himself, one and the same. That he's in heaven, which calls back to the song that she sings. In heaven, when you're in heaven, everything is fine. So he's in heaven near the end, and everything's fine. And he gets to be with his perfect girl and doesn't have to deal with any of the insanity that he's been living with Mary and the baby and all that. I don't fucking know, man. Like, this is fucking... Hey, I kept it under an hour. Fucking... I am shocked, actually. I thought this was going to be the longest video on the channel. Like, really. Like, I really thought this would hit like an hour and a half or something like that. But... I don't know, man. Like, this has been the hardest video I've ever done in this channel. Like, by far. And I could have told you guys that a week into this channel. That when I cover Lynch, it's going to be the fucking hardest stuff ever. And it is. And I know a lot of those videos is just me fucking rambling and shit. But that's what I love about Lynch, is that you can't think of any of his work in a straight, rational, logical thought. Like, it's all over the place. And it makes your mind go all over the place. And your thoughts go all over the place. Just like a dream. And how your dreams just don't make any logical sense. But they are filled with symbolism and filled with things that, you know, with dream interpretations that people do all the time and look up about what their dream means and the meaning of dreams and all that stuff. All plays into Lynch's work. Like 100%. And he's just an absolute master at doing that. At just making films that feel like a fucking fever dream. But being so packed with symbolism and metaphor and just little details that always mean something. That there's never any superfluous stuff in his movies. Everything is always there for a reason. The sound design, like I said at the beginning, is fucking masterful in this movie and everything he does. That's why he always does the sound design and stuff and the music for his work, because he knows how important the music and sound design in film is. And I always talk about sound design with most movies when I do videos on here. I always, pretty much always mention the sound design when I'm talking about a movie. Unless it's just like, you know, like not a shitty movie, but like, not like a serious movie, like, you know, like a very well-made film or something like that where it doesn't really matter and stuff. But I usually always try to bring up the sound design and talk about it because, one, being a musician and writing and recording and stuff my whole life, so like I'm familiar with recording and mixing and stuff like that, and that's always been an interest of mine and just something I've always been into. So just I always pay attention to the sound design and the music in movies, and he is just the best at that. Like I said, there's no other director whose films I must watch every time with headphones on. I have to. I have to. Because it's just so much a part of his films. There's the sound and the music and is so integral to his films that, like I said, it's like an omnipotent being that's just always there. And like I said, there's like maybe like 3 seconds in this movie that of silence, like after like a light flickers out for a second or something like that. Throughout the rest of the movie, there is always sound, whether it's machinery in the background or just white noise or any type of sound. There's always sound, and it's always masterfully done. And my blanket statement at the beginning of just how every shot, every frame, everything with Lynch is just unbelievable. Like everything he does is a work of art to me. Not even like I said, not even just his films, his actual artwork, his music that he's done and released a few CDs of, his fucking sound design in the movies, his acting, everything. And he's just one of my favorite people to exist, let alone one of my favorite directors. That's a good place to end this fucking, it's 5 a.m. Man, that was hard. If anyone is still here at the end, I salute you, man, because I don't know if I can listen to myself talk like this about Eraserhead for a fucking hour. So, fucking props to anybody who made it to the end of this video. But, yeah, I know it's Slasher September, and I just felt like, I don't know, like throwing off expectations today with doing Texas Chainsaw early, well, technically, yeah, early this morning, but kind of last night before I fell asleep. And having that be a slasher, and then just throwing a curveball with Case 39 and a huge curveball with this movie. But I'm not going to be doing more Lynch like in the near future, especially after how hard this was. Like, they're absolutely all coming. Like, a whole fucking series on Lynch. But I'm going to have to space them apart. Just for how hard it is to talk about his movies. And just think of all the interpretations and theories that you can take from everything that he does. And like before I even started this channel, I said that I would love to talk about Twin Peaks on here. I don't even know how I'd go about that. I don't. Like, would I do just a video an episode? That shit would take a long ass time. Like, or just do like a long video on the first season, a long one on the second, or 2 videos on the second since it's really kind of long with 22 episodes. And then like a same thing, like a part 1 and 2 long form video on the return. I don't know. Any Twin Peaks fans out there who made it to the end of this video, let me know any ideas. Like if you want to hear me talk about Twin Peaks, or maybe even do a live stream with Twin. That might be the best way to fucking do it. Just do a live stream. Like when I'm past 100 subscribers, yay for me. Who cares about that? But if I get more in the future and the channel continues to grow a little bit, which it has been, like, I gotta say, in the last 28 days, in the last month, like everything's doubled, like on my channel. Like the watch hours, the fucking views, like, and none of this really fucking matters. Views don't matter on videos. Like, I was surprised, and I did a video on Cannibal Holocaust, fucking, and now this is just like an epilogue here. So anyone who doesn't care about Lynch, that cared about Lynch, doesn't care about anything else, you can fucking leave. But I did a video on Cannibal Holocaust like 2 months ago, and it was at like 180 views or something like that as of a week ago. And then for some reason, out of nowhere, it's over 1,000 views now in like less than a week. So I don't know why, like I don't know what the fuck happened and why that just shot up after 2 months of being on the internet. and at 100 and something views, almost 200, and now it's just shot up in like 5-6 days, 7 days at the most, to over 1,000. I have no idea, but none of that shit matters, because out of those 1,000 or so views, there's maybe 5 people who watch that whole video. And that's how it is with every channel on YouTube, with views and watch time and all that shit. That's why I don't check the analytics pages on YouTube anymore, because that shit is so unreliable. Like, I was looking at it a little bit when I first started the channel, and I would talk to friends of mine and stuff, like horror friends that subscribed very early on, and I would check a video and I'd see that when they show the watch times and how long people watch for, I'd see that like no one watched the whole video, and then I'd talk to 2 friends of mine. They said, "No, we watched like this video, this video." I said, "The whole thing?" Like, "No, yeah, we watched the whole thing." So it doesn't show up. Like, it's so unreliable, the analytics page and YouTube Studio and all the information that they give. It takes fucking days for numbers to update and everything. So I don't even look at that. But like, yeah, like views really don't matter to me at all, and they never have. And like I said when I first started the channel, I'm doing this for me. So subscribers, views, none of that fucking matter to me. But I just thought it was interesting. And I think it's interesting that I just did the Slumber Party Massacre series, the 3 of those, and the worst one out of all of them. If I could sleep, there we go again, Sleepaway Camp. Slumber Party Massacre 3. It's like I had 180 views or some shit after 2 days. The rest of them aren't that high at all. And that's the worst film out of all of them. So I don't know why that one like shot up for no reason. Like, I don't get any of that. So that's why I don't look at any of the information. I don't pay attention to it. Like, it really doesn't matter to me either way. But alright guys, this is 100. This is an hour and 6 minutes. About to be an hour and 7. So it's 5 a.m. I'm going to bed. Take care.